being here. So I'm calling the community board. Oh, I need my microphone. All right, calling the CB8M land use committee meeting to order. Yeah. Okay, so we are going to start with the first item on the agenda in a minute here, but first I just want to let folks know we in the interest of making sure we're able to get through our whole agenda before we have to leave this building, we're going to limit public questions and comments to 2 minutes each. So just be prepared for that. I'm pretty strict with the timer. So is there anything else we need to cover before we start in terms of mechanics?
Yeah, so for people who are going to be participating on Zoom, you will use the reactions icon and the raise hand button to raise your hand whenever we're done with the presentation. We will be sharing the screen so that everybody on Zoom should be able to see what everybody in the room is going to see as they're making their presentation. Once the presentation is over, go to the reactions icon and press the raise hand button if you're having, if you want to speak or make a comment. You will notice that there will be a 2-minute timer. This is both true for in person and for on Zoom. You'll hear an audible chime whenever your 2 minutes is up. And then if you're having problems on Zoom, please use the chat and ask me questions. I'm happy to help you. People in the room, board members, first thing, be in the first 3 rows so that the lovely little owls can hear you. Speak up, be loud whenever you're making comments. If you're not making a comment, this is for everybody in the room so that the people on Zoom can hear us and understand what we're saying. We ask that you just remain quiet and remain civil and respectful for everybody to have as fluid of a meeting as possible. This is not a CNN town hall. Don't expect that level of budget and turnaround of technology. We're doing our best here, so just please be patient and be kind and work with us as we move through everything.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so with that, let's start with the presentation for the Senate Bill to represent the program.
Sorry about that. That was me. Is it working?
Yeah.
If you want to take it off and hold it, that's sort of good.
Oh, that's yes.
Yeah.
Hello, Stephen.
Okay. My name is Jerry Johnson, and with Fox we are land use counsel to the applicants. The applicant entity is LM94 LLC. And it's made up of a joint venture between Freedom Properties and the Chapman Group, both entities that have deep roots in our side. Next slide. So this project, this rezoning will hopefully enable a project on the north side of 94th Street between 2nd and 3rd Avenues, and it will be mixed use residential building and commercial building on the ground floor on something with roughly 385 385 thousand square feet, 46 stories, 484 feet tall.
No, it's okay. It's sitting right there.
Coordinated against and it will have 452 apartments, roughly 25% of the building for 113 of those units will be affordable, response to the MIA's program. Next slide. So the area we're talking about right there is in the middle of the circle, and it's the mid-block of East 94th Street on the north side. It currently is the M1 for the district, which is the best fit to the old industrial area. It used to be in Yorkville at the turn of the last century. And there are 3 districts that are roughly residents at, but ours is one of them. You have a C8 floor that's on the other side of Second Avenue, between Second and First, and then you have another one that's down a little bit further, between First and Second. So we believe that the current M1 floor zone is incorporated in the area right now based on all the development that's happening. Right? And if you look at the sign use map, yellow, the light pink, the dark pink are all residential, mixed use commercial. And then you have the blue, which is all the community facilities, housing portion, etc. So we believe that the use of the building in the future use will be in keeping with the character of the existing neighborhood. Second, and I'll talk about this a little bit in a few minutes, our building form, we also believe is appropriate in this station.
Hang on for a second. So everybody on Zoom is having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah.
And it's probably the use of the microphone. Are you comfortable being as loud as I am right now?
Yes.
Okay, so can you guys all hear me if I'm speaking at this level?
Yeah.
Can you speak at that level and just speak near this little owl friend here?
Yes, do you want to turn this up?
I will happily turn that off. And people on Zoom, feel free to tell me in the chat if it's any better or any worse.
I've never had somebody tell me I was ever too quiet. Okay, so do you want me to repeat anything or should I just go from where we're at right now? Okay. I want to start on the developments of the whole zoning lot from the west side to the east side or the left to the right. There's 3 properties that are going to remain on the site that are currently occupied and will remain. The first is a 5-story commercial building. The second is a 4-story community facility building that has a gym for the St. David's School located on East 89th Street. And then there's a 5-story residential building that has 15 units in it that are rent regulated. Those buildings will remain on the development site, but will provide air rights to the new development. And then you have 3 other buildings that are right next to it. You have a 55-story apartment building that is vacant and was purchased vacant by my clients. And then you have 2 parking garages. And those will be form the footprint of the new development. Next slide. So we believe that a project of this size and density is actually appropriate for the neighborhood and that the zoning districts are appropriate. It's a transit-rich area that can handle the traffic and the pedestrian traffic with the new Second Avenue subway, Lexington Avenue subway, and the buses on East 96th Street and 2nd and 3rd Avenues. Also, Yorkville has a limited number of income restricted units, and this will add to their the mix of mixed use buildings and mixed affordable units in the area. And then second, rents are rising in Yorkville faster than in other areas of the city. And that's partly because housing production in this area has been less than in other parts of the city. Supply and demand. Next slide. So in order for the development, so this is the development, the rezoning area is the area in yellow. The development site is the area in red. So the area on the west side of the site, closer to 2nd Avenue. Oh, yeah, that's great. So this area right here will remain in the existing development that's there, and the air above it will remain open and unobstructed in perpetuity. And then the building form, the tower next to it will be built, will go up. Now, if you look at 97th Street and 90th Street and all of the buildings in between, towers are a consistent development form in this area. So we believe that in most places, especially on the Upper East Side and the Upper West Side, mid-block tower placement is inappropriate. We actually believe here it is appropriate. And so we're proposing this project. And this, next slide. So this is another image that shows all of the towers that are in the mid-block in this location between 2nd and 3rd and 90th and 97th. I want to point out, because people, this building here, while it's not built yet, it was approved. It's the Avalon Bay project that was approved a few years ago.
Where is that?
That one right there.
Is that 17?
No.
Yes,
How many
Is that the
feet?
ECF project?
yes.
600 feet?
Let's just make, that building, at least originally planned, included 3 high schools or 2 high schools.
No, we understand. I'm just pointing it out that it's a tall building that was approved in the neighborhood. Next slide. This is another image that shows our building, which is this one right here within this is 90th Street, this is 97th Street. That shows it within the context of the existing towers. And again, we believe this is appropriate because it's transit-oriented district. There's a lot, it'll be able to handle the pedestrian density. Its mid-block character of the building is towers, and we believe it's in keeping with character of the neighborhood. And I want to point out, we've had questions asked about the parking spaces that will be lost. There are, within the study area of the environmental assessment statement, roughly 3,100 spaces available in the area. And during the time frame of study, that there at any one time, there was no less than 500 actually vacant and available. So there are plenty of spaces in the area. Next slide.
We're not gonna have any comments from the public. We're just gonna hear the whole presentation. Please don't shout out, none of that. Let's just hear the presentation, then we'll get into discussion, questions, all that.
So the image on the left is the existing streetscape of the garages. And as you can see, it's a little bleak, not very pedestrian friendly, sorry, to my clients. And on the right will be the pedestrian streetscape when the building is built. You have commercial use or community facility use on the ground floor, the residential lobby, and then there will be more community or commercial use here, community facility. The streetscape, the sidewalk, street trees will be much improved for the pedestrian experience for everybody in the neighborhood. Next slide. So again, to reiterate, the building will be roughly 452 mixed income units. 25% will be affordable pursuant to the program MIH program 1 and our option 1, and that's no more than 60. The average of those units is no more than 60% AMI. Pursuant to the program, they're required to be a percentage mix of all of the other units in the building, as well as spread throughout the building. Shared lobby, shared recreation facilities, shared everything. The building itself will be ADA compliant, obviously. Retail and community facility I just spoke about. There will be stormwater retention as part of code, so we will not add to the infrastructure. Pursuant to code, will reserve its stormwater on site, either via roof gardens or underwater ground tanks. And it will be a union operated site pursuant to a signed agreement with 32 BJ. And it will contain a mix of 0 studios, 1s, and 2 apartments with some smattering of 3-bedroom units throughout the building. But the unit mix itself right now can't be determined, it needs to be determined closer to market. Next. So this is an image that shows the elevation of the existing building, the new building, and this is the area that will remain open and unobstructed in perpetuity for the benefit of everybody around us. Next. This is just a sample ground floor. It shows the retail or community facility spaces on both sides, flanking the residential lobby. I want to note that the line that goes through here, right here, this is the rear yard line. So while the ground floor will occupy the entire, everything above that is set back 30 feet from the rear property line. Next. Sections of the new building and an elevation of the new building. Next. So we were asked by the chair of the subcommittee to show what building form could be built under the current M14 zoning. And the most likely development, if it was going to be redeveloped under the M14, would be a community facility type accessory office building or something for a hospital or medical facility. And that's a large base with a tower. And this is 32 stories. I just want to point out that one of the reasons we're pursuing this application is that there's actually no market for this type of building in this location. And so we're pursuing our mixed use application. Next. So there are three actions that are in front of you today. The first is the zoning map change to change the M14 from M14 to a C28 on the east side and a C46 on the west side of the site. And what that means is that the C28 is going to be pulled over from Second Avenue across the site roughly to the midpoint of the zoning lot. And then the C64 from the south is going to be brought up. We were asked to do those two separate zoning districts for two reasons. First, they're completely equivalent in terms of the residential portion of the site, but they have different commercial FARs. C28 won't allow a commercial tower, and we were hearing throughout the process that that was something that they wanted to preclude. And then the C4 has a slightly higher commercial and community facility FAR than the slightly higher commercial FAR than the C2 to keep the existing buildings that are there on the site more compliant with the new zoning district. Second, we'll do a zoning text amendment that will map the MIH area on the site. And third, there's a small portion of the eastern end of the site is located in the transit easement development district, which many of you I think are probably familiar with that. Since the Second Avenue subway has already been completed at this leg, and we have intervening buildings, preliminary discussions with the MTA are that they do not need an easement at this location, but we have to file for it anyway because we're in the district. And so those are the three actions. Next slide. This is just a sample of the old zoning map, and then the new districts. The C28 is coming over this way, the C46 is coming up this way. Next. This is the MIH map. And again, that's 25% of the floor area, or roughly 113 of the units are subject to the affordability requirements of the city. No more than 60% average AMI. One income band must be 10% at 40% AMI, and no income band can go higher than 130% AMI. Next. And this just shows you the locations of the existing subway entrances on 94th Street, the east and the west side of Second Avenue, and one on 95th, and then one on 96th. And that ends our presentation.
Thank you. All right, so yeah, if you would like to ask a question or make a comment, raise your hand. Again, members of the public are going to be limited to 2 minutes. I see. Well, I'm just going to go to Rita first, so I can say start her hand first.
Hi. Are the affordable units in perpetuity or there a sunset clause?
No.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, I'll repeat it. The question is, are the affordable units permanent or are they subject to some time restriction? The answers are permanent.
And if somebody moves out of an affordable, out of an affordable apartment, and does that apartment always, and moves to a larger apartment, does the larger apartment become affordable? Will there always be a 25% affordability?
The question is, if somebody moves out of an affordable unit into another affordable unit, does the unit they left remain affordable? And do they go into an affordable unit? The answer is, if you're moving into an affordable unit, you have to qualify for that affordable unit. The unit itself stays affordable.
Last question. What percentage of the people who live in Community Board A are going to live in that building?
That's subject to a lottery process that is run by HPD, and and there's a whole issue going around who can apply for it and where people can come from. But it's pretty much open to everybody in the city, but there are some geographical incentives given to
It
certain
should
people.
be that 50% of the apartments had to go to people within the community.
Right, and that's been challenged in court, and it's still ongoing.
Thank you.
So generally, we like to hear from members of the public first and then board members. So what we're going to do is, if you are here in person and would like to speak and you're a member of the public, if you could line up, please. And then we'll take you in turn.
Do you want to line up on that end? So there's.
Yeah, actually, why don't you line up on this end? Sorry to be sending everybody all over the room here, but yeah, line up on this end. And we will take you guys in turn. And while you're lining up, we will go to Zoom and David Schuback, who I see from the public. Yeah.
No, they stand next to there and they speak loudly.
Yeah, you'll be able to.
The mic is messing up the sound, and I will ask everybody to be patient and kind. And we are experts, we've run this before, we're figuring it out, we troubleshoot it. You don't need to give us advice.
All right, David, no, David Schuback is first.
Hi, good evening. I'm a neighbor on 94th Street. I wanted to ask you about 4 points that you made that I don't think are necessarily and frankly portrayed the way that we would as neighbors in the neighborhood. First, you talk about the mid-block characteristics being something that you say would be normal or typical or expected. I gotta say the mid-block that we have in our neighborhood is Normandy Court. And if you were a neighbor in our neighborhood, I think you'd be hard pressed to want another Normandy Court sitting on the Upper East Side of Manhattan right now. So I'd like to understand why you believe a mid-block characteristic is a positive thing, especially with the idea of putting retail space in the middle of a small block. The second point I'd like you to talk about is the exception you're looking for has a 128-foot 9-inch access or shift. I'd like to know what the impact to lighting on the block is going to be. We've got a lot of smaller units. We also have parks on 93rd and 94th, 2 of them in particular between our buildings. And I want to see what the shadow is going to do to ruin what are right now family zones where we enjoy the beauty of nature in the Upper East Side. And the shadow that I imagine this is going to cast is going to ruin it for several buildings and hundreds of residents who count on our parks. The third point I'd like you to talk about is the parking point, which I think you grossly misrepresented. Yes, there may be some units available on the Upper East Side, but I will tell you that the cost of parking has become more exorbitant since COVID, and taking away several hundred units of parking on 94th Street is going to exacerbate a really bad situation. And then finally, on the fourth point I'd like you to talk about is 94th Street is a small block, and there's a lot of construction happening already. 2 large buildings with lots of cars and parking areas is going to create a traffic nightmare on a nice, quiet street. So I'd like to know how you're going to mitigate traffic and deal with the parking situation that you're taking away. I'd appreciate if you can address all 4 of those topics. Thank you.
Okay. I'll address the building form first. If you go, we can't go back to that slide, but south from their mid-block towers all up and down between 90th and 97th. And while ours is a mid-block tower to some extent, it's also towards 2nd Avenue. And half of the area that's within the mid-block.
Is that the one you want?
Yeah, that's right. Half of the area that's within the mid-block will be open and unobstructed. So this area that's right here will remain open and unobstructed in perpetuity for the benefit of everybody around. The second, retail on the ground floor here is it's retail and it's community facility. It'll be some local, very small, maybe a mom and pop or some kind of a retail location. It could be a community facility like a day school or pre-K or something like that. We don't know what it is right now yet because it's too early, but those are the types of things that can be located here. The same type of retail that's up and down 2nd Avenue or 3rd Avenue that's appropriate in a C2 district, which is a local service commercial district. Yeah, so those will be located here. And as part of the renewed streetscape, you'll have new street trees, a new sidewalk, a much more pedestrian friendly environment for people going to and from, especially pedestrians not being blocked out by cars coming in and out of the garage to and from the subway station. Shadows. So the shadow studies are available in the EAS, and I believe it's all available to everybody on the community board. There's a whole section that contains the studies, and the most of the area, there are very few incremental shadows that will be cast by this project. And most, you talked about the open spaces on 92nd and 93rd, which is south. The way the sun travels, they will have the least impact from the building at all, if at all, the way the sun travels, because the sun starts high in the summer, and then it goes down and it drops in the winter. And so it will, you'll still be getting a lot of sunlight in those areas that you mentioned. There will be more shadows in the back, but again, most of the existing buildings cast shadows, and the incremental is very, very small. And they've identified those in the EAS. And third, the parking. You know, we're in a transit-rich area. I understand you're concerned about existing spaces leaving, but the studies show that there are available parking within the study area. And during the timeframes that they studied and they did tallies, there was never less than 500 available spaces. So the 390 that are being lost are available in other locations in the area. And in terms of traffic, the traffic during construction was a major part of the traffic review by the Department of Transportation as we went through, and there are all kinds of conditions that we must adhere to keep the street open and unobstructed, no trucks parking and blocking traffic, et cetera, et cetera. And that's all detailed within the EAS.
What's the study area for the parking?
I believe it's a quarter mile all around.
Thank you. Ma'am, go ahead, just identify yourself and speak loudly so they can hear you, and also so that this.
Hi, my name is Alea Molson. I think that last gentleman asked a lot of my questions, but I just kind of want to clarify and reiterate some of them. In that previous slide that you had, can you tell me the stories of the surrounding buildings and how your building relates to those?
That's all your questions.
The second question is parking. You say the study says, if I understand this, that there's currently 500 spaces that are available at any given time.
That's where our study showed. Yes.
Okay, so there's almost 500 new units coming in. So I'm guessing at least those spots will be filled by most of those tenants. So I'm just curious if there's if you can just expand on that.
Sure.
Parking.
Do you, is that all?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank
you.
So in the immediate block, other than the third avenue frontage where an existing tower exists, there are lower level buildings, like roughly 5 stories all the way around the site. Second Avenue itself has a lot of regulated 5-story walk-ups, as well as your buildings that are on the backside of 94th Street. And so while this building form is different than that, and our base is roughly 6 stories, and then the tower goes higher. Those existing buildings that are at low scale now will remain. And so that open space around the buildings above the area will remain, as well as that whole western half of the site from the 5-story buildings that are on the rezoning area all the way up. And in terms of parking, this is.
I'm sorry, just what was the story's height of the surrounding buildings? Did you say that?
You mean the tall buildings?
Yeah.
That's what the tall buildings have.
How many stories are they?
Oh, all of the towers range, it's all in that chart that's in the thing, but they range from 32 to 39 to other distances. I mean,
Yeah, all the tall towers that
So
were.
Normandy Court is 34 and.
right, and the Easton on 92nd Street is 32. Our building will be taller than some.
Okay, thank you. And then the
And then the
parking.
parking question.
And the parking question is, the building itself will be a rental building. And generally, people moving into the affordable, I'm not saying that they don't have cars. I'm saying by percentage, they often own less cars. And this is a transit-rich neighborhood. We anticipate that most of the people that will be renting within the building.
Sorry, on the parking question, a lot of the cars that park in this garage are people that live west of this area. I know that the study area is only a quarter mile, but a lot of the cars that park there are actually, they're storage, we call them storage cars. Because they really come further east for a lower parking rate when they only use their car once or twice a month. And I will say also that.
Stop, everybody.
Well, I will say also that,
Can you speak up?
yeah, when there's a building of 400 or 450 units, we have found in other garages that have similar makeup, that you get somewhere around 10% of the entire building that actually own cars. So you're not putting 450 cars in this location, you're maybe putting 40 or so.
I want to clarify who's speaking. This is Patrick Milner, and he's head of garage management company, and they manage garages all over the city. So he's very familiar with the stats.
Thank you. Next, we are going to go to Zoom and Maggie Lehman.
Now you can unmute.
Yes, yes, you can hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Thank you. I'm going to speak to the environmental issue that I raised last week, which environmental problems I did not hear addressed in tonight's presentation, as it was not addressed in last week's presentation either. We're all fully aware that tall buildings intensify heat and it contribute to increased carbon emissions and pollution. This damage from tall buildings intensifies on narrow, small streets, which problem was brought up just a few minutes ago. The restriction to air circulation, to light, to the circulation of light and air, and the intensity of heat only worsens on a narrow side street like this street. Building up super tall towers may add to housing, including affordable housing, but it worsens the environmental damage. Environmental awareness and responsibility, and building with that awareness, that is not mutually exclusive from adding more housing, and especially affordable housing. My ask here of the developer, and this may be more a question for Mr. Friedland as opposed to his lawyer, but I'll leave it up to you guys. My question is that Mr. Friedland, that the developers speak to the rationale for the disregarding, speaking to the environmental damage that a super tall tower, the height of the tower and its size, its bulk, will present on this narrow, small side street, that Mr. Friedland speak to the rationale behind that and to the relationship between the size and the.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so the city has instituted a number of climate regulations and sustainability regulations that this building will have to comply with. Not only that, they're moving forward with new regulations through part of the City of Yes, that when they are adopted, that will be the time when this building goes forward, and the building will have to comply with all of those regulations as well. And those are all designed to address these issues. And further, the environmental review, we did a very thorough environmental review. We not only did one, we actually did 3, because the process from 2017 to today required a number of changes in the regulations, and we had to keep redoing the analysis to come to deal with the new regulations. So we're not trying to hide anything. We're not trying to skirt the issue. We will be fully compliant with all of those regulations that are in place to address these issues in the city.
All right, ma'am, you're next.
Hi.
Just give us your name, please, and
My name is Barry Francabella. I live directly across the street from the Yorkville Garage. I parked in that garage for about 8 years now. I can tell you that with COVID coming and all the huts that they're building and the restaurants and the city bikes that are taking up all the spots on most of the blocks. The parking in the street is, I mean, practically non-existent. You have to sit in your car for 3 hours just to find a spot. I've parked in that garage for over 8 years. It's extremely busy. It's not, as the gentleman says, where most of the people in the building are just parking it there and not using it. Sometimes you have to ride around the block 2 times so that the guys in the garage can actually maneuver to get you into the garage. It's extremely crowded. And I just heard about this. I wasn't aware of this, and I'm just wondering now, I mean, I know there's nothing that can be done when you guys make a decision, but what is the time frame for this to start?
Do you have any other, I just want to use your full 2 minutes. If you want to, you don't have to. I'm just saying, we're not doing questions and answers and so forth.
That's it, I guess, for now.
Okay.
So, in terms of the rezoning, if it's approved, that will be sometime in the spring of next year, or late winter, early spring of next year, when it gets through the city council. In
Early
terms of
spring, late winter, I mean, spring comes before winter, so not this winter.
not the end of this winter, meaning January, February, like probably February or March.
It could start.
Or no. The approval will happen. The building itself will not be built right away. There are other things that must be in place for the construction to start, primarily having to do with the state or an 421A program or alternate programs before I can actually move forward.
I guess what I'm asking is when the garage is gonna close down.
We can't predict that right now, but it's not gonna be anytime soon.
Thanks. Next, let's go to Elaine Walsh on Zoom.
Good evening. Couple of questions. One, on the parking area, I'm not sure that you've taken into consideration the whole issue of congestion tolling, and I'd like your response when you did your study of incorporating that component. Also, you said that we are transit rich. The Lexington Avenue and the Q line are overpopulated as it is, so we do not have access to more people coming in. The question I have, and you touched on it a bit, is that you're saying that construction will be contingent on government funding, particularly the renewal or a model of a 421A. If you do not get any government state funded, as you've described, what will you do with the building? Thank you.
Okay, so MIH is a program that was designed to work with the 421A program and private financing to try to provide permanently affordable units. The 420A program was temporary, but the affordability program, the affordable units are permanent, right? So if 421A isn't there, there's not the ability to finance the construction of the project to provide unsubsidized affordable housing, right? That's what the programs were designed to do. So that needs to be in place or program equivalent before this can go forward. And this isn't just our site. If you read anything, it's all rental units throughout the entire city. We talked about Gowanus that just went through a big rezoning. None of those projects can go forward until they get a new program, and the governor is floating a new pilot program to try to figure out how to make it happen without 421A. But this is not our issue. This is actually a citywide issue with the programs that exist today. So to answer the question about when and what will happen with the buildings prior to that, the answer is it will remain as is, operated as parking garages.
So there was the congestion pricing part of it. And
yeah, the congestion pricing, I do not believe was addressed within the traffic studies because it's a program that doesn't exist. So we don't know what the parameters are, the prices are, how it is actually going to when it finally unfolds, how it will happen. So we were not required, nor did anybody know how to study it within the environmental analysis.
And then the other part was the transit crowd.
Thank you. Subways, recently, are getting busy, but I believe the subways in the area were considered in the transit zone, which is a transit-rich area. The definition, I mean, some places are more crowded than others, but it's not just the Lexington line and the Second Avenue subway line. You have the Second Avenue buses, the First Avenue buses, the Third Avenue buses, 96th Street buses. You've got a number of public transit options in the area. And this is a very well-served neighborhood for transit.
Thank you. You, sir, you're next.
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Glave. I too have deep roots in the community because I live right on 95th Street, right behind that parking garage. We would be put into a state of permanent darkness with the tower shadow. But I moved in when our neighborhood was kind of a ruin. But even then, there were zoning laws in place to prevent mid-block high rises. There were 2 blocks exempted during that time in the early 80s. One was, I believe, an empty lot down in the 60s, and the other was Normandy Court. So to take your picture that you use as a sales point with all the high rises around it, and as though we need greater density within those towers, I think it's just a laughing stock. I think it's hilarious that you're describing our neighborhood as so given over to towers that we need yet another one. When you look on 94th Street across the street from your tower, the Carnegie Hill project stepped their buildings down along 94th Street to take that consideration off the table. But you guys think that we need another tower, greater density, and I just can't believe it. So I don't have a question, I just have a comment.
Thank you. And we're gonna start with the in-person because folks are standing up. I don't want to keep people standing more than they need to. But yeah, so you're next. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, good evening. My name is Andrew Ellis.
Closer to the mic, please.
Thanks.
Yeah,
There
that's
we go.
fine.
Hello, Ellie. My name is Andrew Ellis. I live on East 95th Street. I've lived there for about 10 years now. And I just want to be clear, I am for affordable housing. I agree that it's an issue that our city needs to address, and I applaud all the efforts of CB8 around that. We need to recognize, however, that as we discussed last time, these 100 units, there's no commitment as to what those mix of units will be. They're likely to be studio apartments so that you can spread them out as you need be, and would not be meeting the needs of the families that need housing. So my first question to you is, what is the mix of affordable units, and will they meet the need, or are you simply trying to meet a quota? And would you prefer I ask all my questions at once? Okay. Second, why are we permitting the loss of green space in our neighborhood? This project takes the entire footprint of the building all the way to the lot line. We've been told it's the norm. We saw charts that it was the norm. And if anybody actually was close enough to see that, it is not the norm. In this neighborhood, mid-block development is only when the entire block, like Normandy or Rupert, both have green spaces, by the way. Why should this be an exception? And all the residential units that are around this development lot, they all have that 30-foot setback. So this project adds no new green space. It takes away light, it takes away green space. And by my count, it's going to take away 2 fully grown trees that are up against the lot line. Any other mid-block development I've seen in the area builds new green space. Why are we allowing this to be an exception? So my question to the developer on here would be, why is there no green space being included here? My third question is around this mid-block, including commercial space on the ground floor. There are already empty storefronts. Dwayne Reed, the Rite Aid just closed by the subway as well. Why does the community need additional commercial space there? So that's also a question for a developer, but I would implore CB8 to address that as well. I think we've already fourth area. And I think I have a member of my building owed 2 minutes to me.
Okay, we'll just do that once though.
Thank you. We've talked at length about parking already here. So I don't want to go into much detail, but what study has been done about the reduced air quality that those idling cars that are going to be looking for parking spots, what impact will that have on our community? And then finally, I just want to address that the developers 10 years ago, they approached our building to purchase our air rights. on the ground level ideas of a school, a community facility, senior center. These are things that we could use in our community. I know we saw a slide earlier that wasn't feasible. I'd like to know if you'd be willing to share a public study about that and why it's not feasible, because those are some things that we do need here. And in conclusion, this is my message to the CBA members in the room. We're pro-development. I am pro-development. I'm supportive of affordable housing in our neighborhood, but let's do this the right way. Let's make development lot that works for us. And let's ensure that it meets affordable goals, not just meeting a quota. Let's add green space. Let's not permit this to go to the lot line. Let's address that parking shortage and the clean air concerns. And let's declare that we don't need mid-block development or mid-block commercial spaces. And let's limit the height to what's truly characteristic to the neighborhood. So I just want to, again, these are the needs and concerns that I have, that many members of our community have, that we're hearing tonight, and I implore you guys to listen to us when you make your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. So, that was helpful before you answered the question. So just for everybody, if you're asking a question, please do direct it to the applicant if you can answer it. It's not a rhetorical question. But for other stuff, comments, etc., just direct those to the board members. You don't need to make comments to the applicant. So questions to the applicant, comments really are for the board members for our benefit. So just keep that in mind, please. So do you want to answer those questions?
Yes, so the typical, and what zoning allows, current and probably in the future, for a site like this is a full ground floor. Within the rear yard, you're allowed 1 story. It's usually occupied by the back end of a commercial use, but it's fully enclosed. And then above that, the building sets back and provides the appropriate 30-foot rear yard. That's what this building will have, right? It'll have a 30-foot rear yard above a ground floor. So there will be open space. It will likely be, it'll be properly maintained, screened nicely, and not provide, hopefully an impact to the adjacent neighbors. In terms of the open space, while we're not providing open space on the development site, those 3 buildings that are on the west side of the site, again, are going to be providing air rights or development rights to the site, and the area above them will be open and unobstructed for all of the buildings surrounding it, so that they can never be filled in with another building. It would be permanent open space. And it's above the existing buildings, but it's permanent open space.
There was a question of mix of affordable units.
Mix of affordable units. I mentioned it in my previous statement. So the building itself, when it goes forward pursuant to the program, is, whatever happens, it'll be a mix of studios, 1s, 2 bedrooms, with some 3 bedrooms also. It'll be appropriate for the area during the market at the time it gets built and designed. The affordable units, as part of that, have to represent the proportional distribution of not only those units in terms of size, but also located throughout the building, and share all the common facilities in the building. But we don't know what the unit mix is today, but it will be a mix of 0, 1s, and 2s, and with a few 3s, similar to the market rate that will be built in the building. In terms of the parking and the air quality, that was studied extensively by the city, and they signed off on it that we won't be idling cars, are not going to provide substandard air compared to everywhere else in the city.
Commercial.
And in terms of commercial on the ground, it's on the ground floor and possibly in some space in the cellar. I mean, it's an appropriate commercial or community facility. It's an appropriate location on the ground floor to activate the streetscape, instead of just having white residential walls facing the street. It's the urban design guidelines of the entire zoning resolution implemented here. In terms of the community facility use or the commercial use, the uses that could go there are daycare, house of worship, if they, if for rent, whatever, anything, urgent care facility. Those are all community facilities, they're not just retail. But we don't know what those are going to be yet, but the spaces aren't big. It's not going to be a Target or something like that. It's not big enough for that, okay? but it activates the streetscape and it provides a more pleasing pedestrian experience as you're walking up and down the street.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Oh, and in terms of the negotiation, I want to address this because it keeps coming up regularly. In terms of the negotiations that were happening with you guys previously, that was at the behest of actually the SCA. When we were in discussions with them about putting a school on the site as part of the base of the building. And it was necessary for them, in order to make the site work, to have an entrance, two entrances to the building and their school entrance on 95th Street. And that's what prompted those. They walked from the site and said it was too tight for their use. And so this is why we're here today.
Just a point of clarification, that was not in scope 10 years ago.
No, sorry, we can't, sorry, we just have to go back to so you're next.
Well, my name is Leo Schaff. I've lived in this neighborhood for 40 years. I was on the block Normandy Court when Normandy Court was a hole in the ground. Oh, I should speak to you as well.
Yeah,
you must
go to the mic is really what I'm talking
Oh,
about. So just stand there and yeah, speak to everybody's.
Hi, Mike. Okay.
Stand.
My name is Leo Schaff. I've lived on 95th Street since 1980, when Normandy Court was a hole in the ground. In fact, before it was a hole in the ground. So I've seen a lot of changes. I echo everything that my friend who I've never met before from 95th Street and Andrew, who I just met from 95th Street, because I too live on 95th Street. I too live on the ground floor. I too will be living in utter and total darkness, noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution. Those are three major things I want to bring up actually on my little list here. Noise, light, air pollution. The Upper East Side, as many of you may already know, is one of the worst neighborhoods for air pollution anyway. It's been talked about for many, many years. The environmental concerns our Zoom person mentioned, I echo everything that she brought up as well. I think it's very important. Your opening point, sorry, I don't remember your name, about the logic of doing this because it's in characteristic of the neighborhood, as you were saying, right? If you build and then build and then build and transform the neighborhood into something that then becomes characteristic, that's very specious logic at best. It's illogical. So using that logic to say it justifies mid-block makes no sense to me whatsoever. Similarly, raising the rent is rising, so the rents in the neighborhood will go lower once this is built and more people come in. I find that equally specious and hard to believe. I find it borderline, I don't want to say insulting, but a little prejudicial to say that the block is bleak and not pedestrian friendly because there's a garage on there. Oh, because it doesn't have a street lamp enough to illuminate it? That's absurd. Okay, the subway is a great concern. Okay, last thing I have to say, other than affordable, is I had rats and vermin in my backyard. What are we doing about that?
Sir, your time is up.
I'm done for now.
Okay. Sir, you're next. You with the checkered sir, you're next.
Okay. So a few things. One comment, a couple of questions. My name is Jim Lish. I am also on the 95th Street, right behind the site. I do want to point out from the last meeting that the people who weighed in, I was on the Zoom, people who did weigh in, who were predominantly for this project were from out of the neighborhood. They were from the 70s and 80s. They were not the local people that actually live there. So when you're planning, it's about the people who live there. So let's say the building does get built. This is for you, sir. Being that these are old buildings in the back, what's the plan for, say, the pilings? Is there going to be dynamite? Is there going to be pounding, or are there going to be screws? We know from the 2nd Avenue subway that when they built that, they had to condemn buildings along the way. So that doesn't really work for the preservation of these very old buildings. So that's a question for you. Another one, if your building is not built as a result of the 421A or some replacement, some equivalent, wouldn't that leave the zone that is now changed as a result of these proceedings available for someone else to come in and make something even more astonishing to the neighborhood and therefore even further out of keeping? Or am I just completely barking up the wrong tree? What would happen if you didn't build the building, but the zone was changed? And to add to one of my neighbor's questions here, before my time runs out, when you go into these areas and you create these buildings, you are certainly displacing the rats. Is there a plan in place? Because we know the area is overrun with rats. Is there a plan in place to address that so that we, as these smaller buildings, do not get overrun by the vermin?
Thank you.
In terms of, I think rodent control and as well as the pilings and safety measures for the surrounding buildings, those are all part of the building code and health code that the developer has to comply with to work on those issues as the project is being built. So there's not supposed to be any damage on any buildings, and the construction methods and means will address that. And in terms of the rat problem, they will institute to the extent that they can and that they're required by code and law to help remediate any kind of rat problem that is in the area. In terms,
what if it's rezoned, but
what if it's rezoned? Okay, so if it gets rezoned, basically what you're seeing today is the highest and best in this presentation is the highest and best use of the site. The commercial FAR is very limited on that portion of the development where the new building will go. So there's no incentive for, like I say, a commercial tower, which is one of the reasons why that district has been chosen. Any other building form will be exactly like this. So this is the building that will be built.
Thank you. Sir, you're next. So just, I would say, yeah, stand there where the other folks have been saying, so you're close enough to the mic, speak to them. Tell us your name.
So my name is Austin Selliston. I have relatives and friends who live both in the upper 90s and also in nearby East Harlem. I have both a comment in support and one question. So I could throw a bunch of statistics at all of you, but I'll just throw this number. We need to build 50,000 units of housing in a year. We are on track to build only 11,000 this year. And that enough should demonstrate the need for more housing in this neighborhood, which has not been historically that great at building affordable housing or housing of any types. And the developments that we do see lower down in the 70s and the 80s have actually resulted in a net loss of housing. So such a 452 unit building is a very necessary sea change. I would also like to echo the comments about transit-oriented development. We don't just have the brand new Q train station that's going to be extended, more likely than not, closer to the time of this completion, or the 6 train, but you also have a dozen bus lines of literally every single type of bus line the city has to offer. And then you also have, obviously, the income restricted units that are at the lowest point of MIH, the lowest option that's offered. 60% of the units that were built on an MIH were over the area median income, and this will be on average less. And you have working middle class families and tenants that will be able to enjoy the amenities, the resources, and the opportunities that everyone here already gets to enjoy, which is something that should be more than welcome. And I think this is a necessary change for the neighborhood. I do have one question, a clarification point about the transit zone. So I know that it probably would not qualified to make any changes because 96th Street is a new station. But are there other ways, say with like a bus lane along 96th Street or along Lexington Avenue where such a transit improvement could be implemented? And are you required to do so or have you looked into those options? Thank you.
Thank you.
We're not required to do so, and we have not looked into other options.
All right, do you mind, I didn't say you have a cane, sir. Do you mind if this gentleman goes?
Oh, thank you.
Sure. Right there.
Right here?
Yep, speak up.
Okay.
Perfect.
Hi, I'm Joe Hodgkin. I live in the neighborhood. Louder. I'm Joe Hodgkin. I live in the neighborhood. And question I have on that photo actually is you say 46 floors, right? Is the 46 floors to the very, 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 very top? Or is it to the first? So that's 40, that's gonna be the 46th floor height? I don't believe so.
That's 46 stories, yes.
That's gonna be the 46th floor height.
And then the bulkhead is will be zoning compliant, but it can go up
Okay, yeah,
to
because they
40
put up
feet,
a
which is what we should.
building across, I'm taking my time, a building across the street and they went up and they said it was 24 floors. But by the time they got done putting the electrical, heating and AC on the roof, it was 4 more floors, blocked my entire view of these. Okay, so just wanted to question that. Will there be air conditioning throughout the whole building? Will it be centrally air conditioned?
Ask all your questions.
No, that's one of them, yes, one of them. Will it be rated to commit to A quality energy efficiency?
Keep going. As we have
Okay.
2 minutes, you're good.
Okay, will it have all electric stoves? How will it be air conditioned? And I wanted to know why GMC doesn't want to put a 200-car garage under this building. They have a very lucrative building there now that is literally full. I use their garage, and there's many days I see they have a sign up, building full. So I didn't know why that was, that they don't want to participate in that. And also wondered if 95th Street residents who will be in perpetual darkness caused by this will get any preferential treatment to get an apartment in the building if they wanted to move in. Will they be put on a preferential list to be first chosen?
Thank you.
Thank you.
In terms of the building, energy efficiency and air conditioning, it will comply with all codes.
That's in the ed.
So they're actually constantly changing. So when it goes forward, it would be much more energy efficient than what is allowed today.
Right.
Stop. No, we're not doing follow-ups. Sir, you used your time. We have a bunch of people.
This is changing the zoning, but we will be required to building code to when the building gets through through review with the Department of Buildings, whenever that is, and the codes are constantly changing. Okay, likely it will be an entirely electric building because it's probably not gonna happen before that change happens in like 24 or 25, whenever it is, okay? In terms of the parking, you know, they looked at it and they didn't see the need to provide it. And there's also, while some people here are saying parking is good in a mixed building, if you go other places in the city, they're turning it down left and right. But it was a decision to remove the parking and build a mixed use building and not have the complications of a parking garage in the basement.
Will all the units be air conditioned? That was another question.
Yeah, all the units will be air.
Okay. The preferential treatment for residents.
You know, if somebody's on 95th Street and they want to come talk to the salespeople and say we're here, you know, when it goes forward. But I could talk to my clients about that and get back to you. In terms of the affordable units, that's subject to a whole different regulatory scheme that is managed by HPD, and we have nothing to do with that.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is DJ Falkson. I'm a Yorkville resident. I'm also a member of Open New York, which is a member-driven pro-housing organization. I'd like to speak in favor of this project. I think it's a great project. One comment I want to make is I was doing some research. I found some articles from the New York Times from 1974 and 1983 that were talking about a changing neighborhood from a Central European immigrant enclave. And many of the comments in these articles, I'm kind of hearing the same things today. So my point is just change is really the only constant. Fighting against it, keeping a neighborhood static forever is impossible. This used to be an immigrant enclave and it is not that anymore. Our city's vibrancy is really threatened by a very critical housing crisis. Vacancy rates are at historical lows, rents are climbing at an unsustainable pace. The shortage of available housing is not a matter of perception, it's a quantifiable reality. And it's uneven across the city. The Upper East Side is actually one of the worst offenders there. The housing stock's been basically flat for 15 years. I think it's a welcoming community. We haven't explicitly closed our doors to newcomers. Everyone I meet in Yorkville is very welcoming explicitly, but implicitly we have closed those doors because there's nowhere for existing residents to live or newcomers to live. I think the proposed development, it's really good. It's at the crossroads of accessibility and opportunity. It's strategically located near 2 subway lines, which I ride them every day. They are not super overcrowded, and many bus lines. I also want to comment, it's very close to some of our world-class medical facilities like Mount Sinai and Sloan Kettering. So that makes it an ideal residence for the medical professionals that serve our community every day. And I think with 452 mixed income units, 25% of which are permanently affordable, it's about as close to a testament to inclusivity as we can expect from a big building. I think I'll stop there.
Thank you. All right, so, sir, come on here. These last folks who are on the line, this is it for in person. The folks who are currently have their hands up, that's it for the Zoom comments, because we have to, get through this. We still have a lot of stuff to do, so go ahead.
Hey, Peter, I live in the area, live in 95th Street. First of all, this picture is deceptive, because that building doesn't even exist, the one that's behind it.
I mentioned that earlier.
All right, and I also kind of find it offensive that you come into my neighborhood and you tell me what you think is good for the block. And anybody in the group that says, well, we think it's good in the mid-block. Because we wouldn't have discussion, and I don't know why we're here, if we were on the Upper West Side. Because the Upper West Side doesn't talk about this. Don't touch the village, you don't do this in the village. But the Upper East Side seems to be up for grabs, okay? This discussion shouldn't be had. We should be talking about building the waterfront on the Upper East Side instead of mid-block development. Okay, it's crumbling into the water, and nobody talks about that, but let's talk about development. Now I was around, if anybody remembers, from 93rd Street, when that park got taken away, we were the lowest open space area in the city. We're still the lowest open space, because no one's knocked down a building and built a park since that happened, okay? These things don't happen, they don't happen in a vacuum. That building was sold out at the last minute. I'm gonna say something too, it's gonna offend some of the people here, and some of the council members. Don't trust all your council people, because I'm telling you right now, I was there when a council member sat there with his veins in his throat saying he was gonna fight for the park, and the night before, he turned around and thought, no, I'm gonna vote for the building. So he put all eggs in that one guy's basket, okay? So just remember that. Once bitten, twice shy. That guy did that the night before the vote. I never forgot that. We lost a really nice park that got used by a lot of people over there, from 92nd to 93rd Street. All right. What else? Because again, about coming into my neighborhood and telling me what's good. If I came to your neighborhood and said I was gonna build a 24-hour motorcycle shop, you'd hit the roof. All right, so I really find it offensive to come here and trying to convince everybody what's good for us. And all of a sudden, that dangerous, 1,000 people get killed a day on 94th Street or because of their cars. This doesn't really up to answer these things. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Leo, he's gonna be the last in person. You've already spoken. I'm sorry. No, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I live in 95th, directly behind the building. I also work in the real estate industry, so I love analytics. I love looking at buildings. Throughout this meeting, I've just been writing some things down. Your map that shows all the relatable buildings. Your closest comparable is building number 6, which is a Waterford, which was built on an avenue in 1987. 205 East 92nd, which is number 16 on this map. We could argue that that's mid-block, right? Fine. The issue with that is that you're actually to the east, also with Rupert Tower, which was built in the early 90s. There's no precedent for a middle block that's 46, 47, 50 stories tall. I do a lot of work in Sutton Place, and there they actually only allow you to develop on the outside in. You have to be as tall as the building next door to you. On 94th Street, there's no building next door to this. That's 46 stories high. I just think for consideration, if we're thinking about a precedent in the future, the buildings are not coming up mid-block. The longer it goes on, the longer you'll continue to see mid-block development. My question to you is, why do you think this is, why is it developer thinking that 46 stories in the middle of the neighborhood actually makes sense?
Do you have any other comments or questions?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Guys? I think our presentation is our presentation and our justification for what we believe is appropriate in the location. You may have a different opinion, but we believe that it's an appropriate site, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Aiden on Zoom.
Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me? Hope so. I'm a public school teacher. I currently live on East 95th Street, and I just wanted to compliment your patience, the host, dealing with all these absolute nonsense complaints about building new housing, especially some that's affordable. I just want to say it's easy to care about shadows cast on parks by new affordable housing when you're not paying 40% of your take-home income on housing. If that's your biggest concern, you shouldn't be the one determining whether new or affordable housing gets built. You've clearly got life figured out. You'd be hard pressed to find anybody who would not want to live in new, affordable housing because it casts a shadow in a nearby park. Stop talking about perpetual darkness like we're going to delete the sun from existence and the rapture will come because we build a new tower. You still live in Manhattan, you'll be fine. If you have to decide between affordable housing and parking spots, I don't think anybody in good faith would argue that parking spots are more important. As the host said, it's an incredibly transit-rich area, and as somebody who uses public transit, it is not congested. Remember that ridership is still at 70% of what it was in 2019. You don't need a car here, and if you have the income for one, you can afford a parking spot regardless. So my question, so I have two actually. I'm a public school teacher who's a member of a union, and I still wonder this. Why is union labor part of the plan for either construction or maintenance? I don't remember which one. And two, do we know how much this will actually reduce rents or what the going rent will be for any sort of unit, whether it be studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, etc.? Thank you.
So in terms of what the units will be, we do not know what the rents will be, at least from the market rate, because those are dependent on the market when it goes forward. In terms of the affordable units, there are schedules that show how much the income required for the people that are eligible for the units from either a single family or a single person household to a 4-person household. Depending on the AMIs that are required to be in part of the mix. We don't know what the actual AMIs will be. We do know that 10% of the units have to be 40% AMI, and the AMI is set by HUD. It's not set by the city or us. And then the average under this program has to average in total to no more than 60% AMI. So there could be some that go above that, but with 10% at 40, most of it's going to be somewhere between 60 with a little bit of 80 and maybe something higher, but I doubt it.
Okay, next let's go to Ravi Delakia.
Hi, I live on 95th Street and 2nd, and I'm right behind this project as well. I just wanted to speak out in support of this proposal as well. As the person who went before me said, he pays 40% in rent. I also pay 40% in rent, and I think this has been one of the most destructive features of this neighborhood. I love this place. I've lived here for the past 3 years, and I've lived in New York for the past 12. And I think that the number one cause of people leaving this neighborhood is rent, is driving out longtime residents and creating a barrier, especially for students and young people, and and people who work as teachers and public in the government as well. And I think this is definitely one of the problems in this neighborhood. And with this proposal, I believe the city government will be able to reaffirm that it prioritizes people and pedestrians over vehicle storage for the rich and prioritize residents' well-being. Shadows and parking aren't even close to the top of the list of the concerns of this community, especially in a time of housing crisis. Not only is this project welcome, it's necessary. And I think it's easy to say no to small inconveniences like inconveniences like the ones I stated before, but I strongly suggest to my neighbors, and I respect my neighbors, I really do, that we take into account the struggle of renters and non-drivers as we make up the vast majority of people in this neighborhood. And that's why I support this project.
Thank you. Next is Ben Lavender, which is the last comment from the public.
All right. Ben, you get on there.
Yep, sorry about that. Hi, everyone. I'd like to thank Community Board 8 Land Use Committee for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Ben Lavender, and I work as a political organizer with 32BJ SEIU. SEIU 32BJ is dedicated to representing the interests of the 175,000 members across 11 states and in Washington, D.C. Our union members are the pillars of property service sector here in New York City, performing crucial roles in commercial and residential buildings, stadiums, airports, and a multitude of other locations. Our diverse membership shares a common goal to elevate employment standards throughout our industries. SEIU 32BJ has gained a credible commitment from Friedland Properties and Chapman Group concerning the creation of good and permanent jobs at 231 East 94th Street. These jobs that are adhere to the prevailing wage and benefit standards that 32BJ members have worked tirelessly to establish and uphold in our industry. The proposed development would be one of the first private properties to introduce over 100 units of affordable housing in Community Board 8 area in recent years. The dire need for affordable housing is evident in the Yorkville neighborhood, and this project serves as a response to that demand. I strongly urge you to lend support to this project. It is a remarkable opportunity to support a building that would supply good service jobs. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go to members of the board, and we're going to limit all of us to 2 minutes each, because just in the interest of time, we need to. So we'll have a 2-minute time limit for board members. I would just encourage folks, what we have to come out of here tonight with is a resolution. So if you could really focus your comments on what what the conditions should be, if there are things you don't like, what that should be. I mean, just like specifics to get us to a resolution so that we can do that and get out of here. So with that, I'm going to go to Barbara.
Did you say Barbara?
Barbara, yeah, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. There's so much about this that I would approve. I am somebody that cares about it. But what bothers me is the fact that you don't know if you will be building or how. First of all, to say we are losing stock, that's because we've knocked down, or worse than knocked down, is we've emptied out buildings without building. I live on 2nd Avenue. Anything east of 3rd Avenue is non-stop empty lots, or worse than empty lots, or those that hopefully will be empty and built one day, but just boarded over in the most ugly way for years and years and years. My favorite story is between 86th and 85th Street, between 2nd and 1st. The Excel building has been there for about 20 years. Absolutely disgusting. So I know from the last meeting you said you didn't empty out, Mr. Friedland didn't empty out that one building, but it was empty when you went, which means you lost all of that housing from that one building, and it could be years before any decision was made. So I'm going to ask, is there, that I don't know if you have an answer what we can do, but if it does take years, will you maintain the property? Will there be anything that's done so that we don't have this huge eyesore that we have throughout the whole building? I've been trying to work with the electeds with it. I've talked to the community board. It's really awful. Across the street from me, across the other street from me, it's nonstop. And I don't know how we would vote, because we now have these empty buildings that have lost all of that housing stock. And the housing stock, I'll repeat again, it's not because we're not building or there is a chance to build, it's because of all the housing that has been taken away.
Okay, in terms of the vacant buildings, I believe it's being maintained. It doesn't, it's not all boarded up, and it's not nicer. It looks like
20 years from now, quickly.
It will be maintained in a nice manner to not be an ice run site. And the garages themselves will remain in operation. So they'll be active, and they will be not boarded up in vacant sites. They'll be in operation with the parking facilities until this project's allowed to go forward.
Let's go to Cos Bangaletti on the Zoom.
Yeah, 3 questions. The affordable housing, are they segregated to the upper level of the building, or will they be interspersed in the whole building? Worst case scenario, if you do get approved, can we have the construction lights off 10 p.m. to 6, 7 a.m.? And if you do get approval, can we be guaranteed that no demolition will be taken until you are ready to build, rather than have an empty lot for 5-10 years? Thank you.
So in terms of the first question about the affordable units are required by law to be interspersed throughout the building, not segregated in one portion. It will be a rental building, so all of, they'll be throughout all of the floors. Or 65% is what's required, but it's there's not a portion of the building that's being, in some instances, people segregate a portion of the building under as a condo. This is all residential and they'll be throughout the entire building. In terms of the site itself, it will be operated and active until the development goes forward. So it's not going to be sitting as vacant or vacant sites. And in terms of they will have to follow all of the construction codes and the times within what's allowed. And since it is a more of a residential neighborhood, late night variances for construction and weekend construction is something that I doubt DOB will approve.
Okay. Lori.
I am, first of all, thank you for the presentation. I am not crazy about the mid-block aspect of this, but leaving that aside, I just wanted, I want clarification on the 25% affordability. Does that mean that 25% of the studio apartments will be affordable? 25% of the one-bedroom apartments will be affordable? 25% of the two-bedroom apartment. In other words, what I'm concerned about is that when you say 25%, you could make 25% all studios, you know, which wouldn't be helpful for, you know, families who need, you know, space. So that's what I'm asking. So when you think 25%, does it mean 25% of each type of unit will be affordable?
It's proportional to the building, the market rate portion of the building. So if the market rate has 25% studios, 25% of the affordable have to be studios. If the market rate has 10% two bedrooms, 10% of the affordable have to be two bedrooms.
Michelle.
Thank you. I'm not sure, the question was asked many different ways, but I'm not sure I understand this answer. You own the property, and if you get the rezoning that you're requesting, that now is assigned to that property and moves with that property. If under those circumstances, you don't get the appropriate funding, there's no 421A or a comparable. And if you then, as owners of this rezoned property, decide not to build, can you sell this property and then the zoning goes along with it? What happens in that scenario?
The answer is yes.
Yes, okay.
But again, I mentioned this earlier in the process, the building that is being built is what the current zoning will allow. So the next person will be subject to the same regulations. So their building will be similar.
Okay, I just also want to say for everybody, you know, when you're talking about number of stories, it's not a statistic that's, it's not a number worth listening to. You have to talk in terms of feet, because the height of the ceiling is the issue. So you can't just say it's a 6-story building. If the ceilings are 12 feet, you know, the slabs are different, whatever. You have to talk number of feet. Also, I wanted to point out that the EAS is paid for in every case, not just this one, by the developer. So bear that in mind when you're taking the information at its face. My last one is, can affordable units be joined?
So affordable units, I do not believe can be joined because they are subject to a regulatory agreement that is reviewed and governed by HPD and other regulatory processes. So the regulatory agreement spells out which units are part of the agreement, what the rents are, all the conditions they have to meet. So you can't combine them and create bigger units. They are what they are. In terms of the height of the building, it's 484 feet. As a rental building, the standard floor to floor is roughly 10 feet with like a 6 to 8 inch slab that handles all the mechanics, maybe a little more. These are like actually standard height buildings. It's not like this building is seeking to jump. It's not like all of the mechanical voids and the gaps that people are doing to put super tall towers
No, I
down in
understand.
Midtown.
It's a 410-foot building, did you say?
484 feet.
Okay, so if it's.
Michelle,
10
sorry,
feet,
you're-
but it really is that, that amount. Okay, thank you.
And sorry, just to clarify, I think the question that folks have been trying to ask is, if you sell the building, is the 25% affordability? If you sell the building, is the 25% and there's no affordability rate, is there still 25% affordability in a residential building that gets built there?
Yes, because it's mandatory inclusionary housing,
That's the.
which means that any building that gets built here that has residential in it, which the FAR would allow, has to be 25% affordable. Period. If they find an alternate way to finance it, it still has to be 25% affordable.
Okay, Felice.
So two questions, since you answered two of my other questions. Actually, really one question, because the other's been answered. You talked about requiring a union for the operation of the building. Will this building require prevailing wage for the construction?
I do not believe there's an agreement in place for that, and I don't know what will happen when it moves forward.
Thank you.
Mike.
Let's follow up. I mean, I see how 32 DJ listed as one of the unions, right? They come in when this building is done. Will this building be built union by the New York City building trades, not any union, New York City building trades?
And ask.
Will you be taking advantage of community hires to build these can buy and what you use? Will it be using that apprenticeship program that drives careers where young individuals come into
And ask all your questions, make all your comments. I want to.
That's all.
Okay.
And would you repeat the question, just because?
Will the construction of the building be subject to union labor? And will there be community preference in or benefit for job hires? Right. So I believe it would be an open shop construction with the agreement with all of the trades, so they have competitive bidding for the work. I believe that's how it works. I believe as part of it, they look at and we can address the issue of, I can talk to my clients and we can address the issue about local hiring.
Can you say what open shop is? Does that mean non-union?
It means that all the trades negotiate, I believe it means all the trades, union as well as non-union labor negotiates for the job.
So I would just encourage folks to start thinking about a resolution. It can be a yes, it can be a no, it can be a yes if, it can be a no unless. So let's just sort of start thinking about it. Elizabeth Burrows.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
And Elizabeth, do you mind standing up and projecting? You're a little far enough back that.
I have one comment and then sort of a couple of suggestions. My biggest observation is you described this block as appropriate and consistent and characteristic of the neighborhood. And every time you describe it, what you're describing is an avenue block. An avenue building, a building that is on the avenue with retail street frontage and a full to the lot line development. That is not what this is. You are effectively saying we're going to sort of just curve this avenue around because we're curving the zoning around. This is a mid-block building. It's a mid-block location, and every building you have cited, with the exception of Normandy Court, is an avenue building or a 96th Street building, a wide street building. And so I'm really having a hard time overcoming my experience of what I really perceive as intellectual dishonesty in how you frame this. Upzoning this area, adding affordable housing and addressing our housing crisis, but we're really making it hard. So a few comments. First of all, no retail on mid-block would be characteristic of this neighborhood. So I would like to, if we were to approve this, include that they're not being retail on the ground floor. That second, you are hearing from this community board that we want parking capacity in this neighborhood, and you have an all-one option. You can retain parking spaces, you can build the parking spaces. So instead of commercial space, we would like to see, I would like to see parking spaces maintained in this building. And it doesn't have to be the full 390 or whatever you have, but there should still be parking here.
In addition, the other thing that I'm afraid of is this building gets sold, is that it doesn't get sold to somebody who wants to build 452 apartments. It gets sold to somebody who wants to build 250 apartments. And so I would like some sort of restricted covenant that this will be, if we're going to approve this.
Thank you.
increase
Elizabeth.
This height,
All right.
that needs to be 450
That's it.
apartments.
Thanks. John. Guys, please, if you just take some time when you call.
John McClement, I live on 85th Street between First and New York. I've lived there for 35 years. Every direction I look into my building, there are tall buildings that are either up or sprouting up. I'm very concerned about the height of this building. 484 feet seems to me really, really excessive. And your answer seems to be, as someone else cited, well, we have a lot of them, so why not one more? And that's what bothers me. It's just ruining the entire Upper East Side, these ultra tall buildings.
Thanks. So I just am gonna ask two quick questions, which is, what is the current maximum height under the current zoning? I saw you gave an example of the sort of potential thing, but what's the actual sort of maximum height that could be there is number one. Number two, are you gonna be able to replace trees that are lost at the lot? Are you gonna replace those somewhere in our district?
Okay, in terms,
The maximum height under the current zoning.
maximum height of the current zoning is actually unlimited if you're doing a community facility tower. So that building form that I showed you, it could just keep going. You run out of floor area, yeah, limited floor area, right? Just like our building, you run out of floor area, right?
Yeah.
Run out of floor area at a certain point. But that was 32 stories and I think 390 feet or something.
Okay.
In terms of, you mean the rear property, landscape, we can discuss with my clients when they go forward that there's a roof back there. And it could be planted. The existing, I'm sure the existing trees will be gone, at least the ones that are on our site. But there could possibly be landscaping and stuff on the rear portion of the top floor.
Okay.
The first floor.
Gotcha. Let's go to Paul Frickler on Zoom.
Thank you, Russell. Thank you very much to the gentleman for the presentation and for being so courteous. I think you put up with a lot. I'm hugely in favor of this. I would vote twice if I could. It's a very simple thing for me. This housing crisis, we talk about saying there's a housing crisis, but what it means, if you're paying $5,000 a month in rent and your rent goes up by 30 or 40%, which is happening to people all the time, you suddenly got to find $10,000 to $15,000 extra from post-tax income. So it's a very simple equation for me. It's 452 units of more affordable housing versus 390 car parking spaces. From my perception, as someone who's been in the neighborhood Upper East Side for 15 years, it seems to be car parking spaces seem to take up in some people's minds more importance than things like street safety, bike lanes, or putting trash containers in the curb, and now housing. So it seems like there's nothing more important than car parking spaces for some people. I think that's wrong. We're in a housing crisis, and this is the only way you address the crisis. It doesn't magically get fixed by other people magic up buildings somewhere else. People want to live on the Upper East Side, and they're being forced out. So that's what I had to say. I'll be in favor.
Next is going to be Billy Freeland.
There wasn't.
It wasn't a question, it was just a comment. We're going to go next to Billy Freeland on Zoom. Can you turn up the volume?
I can turn.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. I just want to say a couple things. I really support this project, and while I'm not sure it's perfect, and I'm sure there are things that we could try to work with you on and concessions we probably want to get, in general, our neighborhood needs more housing. We're seeing apartment combinations actually result in some instances in net losses of housing, and the housing that we're getting is often ultra luxury. So I'm really pleased to see that we're going to see 113 rental units at 60% of AMI, as I understand it, assuming we have some sort of version of 421A or compromise out of Albany, which we badly need. The 452 mixed income units, I think that translates to potentially, 1,000 people being able to live in this building, depending on the mix of 1, 2, 3 bedroom apartments. I think that's really, really important. We've heard from young people today, and I like to consider myself still a young person, paying upwards of 40, 50% of our income in rent. And last I checked, I think the average or median rent in Manhattan is $5,500. So if you want, your children, your grandchildren being able to live in our neighborhood here in the Upper East Side, raise a family, we have to do something desperately to get more housing. And so it's not going to be perfect and we're going to have our objections, but we've passed resolutions as a board before that have said we want more housing. We support Borough President Levine's plan on this. We support some form of rezoning. Well, now we're being given something specific. So whether we're going to live up to those values or not is maybe the question. I do want to ask one question. And by the way, I will say I would love to vote for a resolution tonight. I hope someone will propose one. My question is, you've said you don't know the mix of, I guess, studio, 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom. Do you have any sort of ballpark sense, one? And two, what is your ability going forward to work with us on compromises, whether it's the type of retail, what's on the ground floor, the mix of units? Are you committing to coming back to us as a community board and working with us in the months and years ahead? Thank you.
Right now, the ballpark, I wouldn't know what to say just based on the market today. I don't know what that would be. But it will be pursuant to market. And again, the affordable reflects the market rate in terms of the unit mix. I believe it will, today everybody talks about the combination of units. That's because there are a lot of projects that are going forward that are condos, right? Condos, people merge and increase the size of the units. This is going to be a rental building, so the incentive is to keep more units in the building as opposed to less. So combinations aren't going to happen, and getting to the point of the 452, it's going to be it'll be somewhat close to that. And in terms of the mix, will reflect the market rate. What did I miss?
Thank you. You say that there's affordable housing and we're all supposed to embrace it as though it's a gift, but what it really is the minimum that you're required to do in order to do something. And so that's not inappropriate for a big block where adjoining blocks are already with a 75-foot height limit, which to me seems much more appropriate than, as Elizabeth said, putting an avenue-sized building, and as you said, putting a building that's even taller than most of the surrounding buildings, including the well-loved before at 34 stories. So this is wrong. Even the city of Yes, as much as I don't like that proposal, requires 30% affordable units, and you're talking about 25% as though, again, it's great. You refer to lack of construction in the neighborhood. Walk down First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, and you see very tall buildings, all market rate, with the according loss of affordable units, because not only are they demolished and kept vacant, but the units that go up are all luxury rated, and sometimes they don't even match the number of units that are torn down. So we're losing affordable housing. We're not getting enough, and this is not a gift to the community. I agree with whoever spoke that to come in and say, and I know what Freeplan does to the commercial properties on Lexington, because I've been told by store owners. So I don't think this is actually anything that the neighborhood wants, and instead it is something when you come in and say it's appropriate, when it's appropriate, because it's what you want to build, not because it's suitable for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Second, what Alita said, I am just shocked by this and by our pretended innocence about what a real estate developer is really after in our neighborhood. And believe me, those rental units, except for the so-called ones that are excluded because they are so-called affordable units, are going to be at market rate, which is only going to go up, 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 up in our city. I hope people take the wool out of their eyes and recognize that this is a real estate development project that's dependent on a piece of legislation that the legislature has to pass, the 421A, which is not even set in stone right now. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, I have 3 comments and then 3 questions. I only had 2 questions a minute ago. First, and this is my constant hobby,
250,000 people live in Community District 8, which is just a hair over 2 square miles. And that includes Roosevelt Island. So for anyone to come before us and say, we need more density because the city needs more affordable housing, it's just, it's absurd and it's insulting. 2, it is utter nonsense to believe that rents will not go up because we build market rate housing. The definition of market rate housing is, and I quote, whatever the market will bear. The market rate housing will become more and more expensive, not reduce it. It will increase the stock of unaffordable apartments. Now, the 3 questions. How many parking spaces are lost? I think you said it, but I don't remember. Second, why not spread the FAR over the entire site? I mean, it's very sweet of you to just use air rights, but if you spread that, if you spread the 380,000 square feet over the entire site, we end up with a building that's closer to 20 stories high, not 46. And yes, that's a big mid-block building, but it's a lot less big of a mid-block building. And finally, not quite finally, would you be allowed to switch, and then I do have one more comment, would you be allowed to switch condos if in fact either you or a subsequent purchaser of the property, it all goes that way? Would you be able to switch this to a condo?
That's fine. No, sorry, no.
Okay.
We're gonna go to Craig. Do you still have a comment? Oh, no, sorry. Why don't we answer the questions that were asked and then we'll go to the next person.
390 parking spaces.
Okay.
Under MIH, it's 25% has to be affordable. And generally that works with a rental building, not condo. If in terms of the market rents, those statistics came out of the racial equity report for the project. That is part of the application. Though I want to say that with 421A, the market rate becomes rent stabilized for people that move in to the building when those programs are in place. So it would be subject to stabilization.
So did you just spreading the FAR?
Oh, and spreading the FAR, instead of, if you took that FAR, well, first of all, there's 3 buildings that are currently occupied. They're owned by other people. They're not moving, so those buildings are staying. The air rights that are above them are going on our building, but that open space is remaining in perpetuity. You're right, the answer is if we owned them and we controlled them, we could make it a larger site and down, but it would not likely be all the way across. It would be a town form still in the middle.
Right.
Thank you for your presentation. I'd like to make a motion to approve and speak to it or second it.
Second.
All right, thank you. So I'm open to reasonable conditions, but it's really important that we approve this tonight. I appreciate you're actually proposing affordable units and you're trying to address our #1 district need, putting aside whatever other motives you may have with the community may need to have. And a significant number of affordable units, and with no loss of affordable units that exist now in order to accomplish this, and in a transit-rich district in a place where, putting aside mid-block, but in an area where we should be focusing on increased development with higher density, because we do have, contrary to what we've heard, plenty of capacity on the Second Avenue subway and New York City Transit in order to accommodate new residents that would come in. We keep witnessing luxury towers getting built in our district, and in some cases with more floors than apartments. And here we actually have a proposal that is not geared towards most privileged, with smaller units that hopefully attract new residents that may ultimately raise families in our community. And from a practical standpoint, this proposal provides a tremendously better outcome than an as-of-right development that would be susceptible to if we reject this. And as you know, the existing zoning is antiquated, and could very well result in new and appropriate uses and with an unlimited heights without any community development benefits. So I guess what I want to say is for those worried about construction, any project, be it this or something else, will have to endure that as well. The task force is not going to be able to do its work anytime soon to be able to get something to deal with the mid-block issues. And as a board, we need to recognize that there will never be a development project that will be devoid of local opposition. And again, I'm sympathetic to the concerns that we heard.
Greg, sorry, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Valerie.
Okay.
Yeah. Valerie.
Can I just, why do you have to approve this tonight? I feel like we're really rushing when 421A didn't even happen.
Well, our ULIP clock is gonna end at the end of December. I don't think we're gonna have time. We're only gonna be able to have one meeting in December. One full board meeting. We have our full board meeting next week for November. That is also gonna be extremely crowded with the election and City of Yes and a bunch of other stuff. So I would like us to do this today.
I have a point of information
Beg your
too.
pardon?
I have a point of information too.
Yeah,
I think it is. Rather than approve this, I'm asking this in a question, I don't know if it's allowable. Rather than have an up or down resolution for or against, can we have a resolution with suggestions for the project?
it can be, yeah, it can be a yes if, it can be a no unless.
So, okay, so that's what I would like to see happen to.
So what conditions do you want? Or
Well, the comments that were made, the concerns, in other words, a community facility, rather than commercial in the mid-block. Asking that the building height be lowered, parking included. A whole list of the comments that were, that were expressed that were of concern. If we can put that in an ask of a resolution rather than have a straight up and down.
yeah, we can definitely do that. So I mean, I think, I don't know, I guess, Craig, would you accept those as friendly amendments, essentially all
No.
conditions?
So somebody would have to make a substitute resolution, which I
Right,
can't
right.
because I just.
Yeah, separate votes as well, or something together.
Yeah, that's true, that's true.
I didn't
So,
hear-
yes, and Craig is also saying we can have a vote on one resolution, it fails, and somebody can make a new resolution.
But it
to
could be a substitute if
But
someone.
somebody can make a substitute motion to that effect.
I
And I
can't
would
do it
just
because I spoke.
briefly to the points that Michelle made, I think the other points that have come up as potential sort of conditions or what have you. Project labor agreement or prevailing wage for the construction and the replacement of the trees that will be lost, which is something that I brought.
And open space.
And yeah, some sort of open space, I guess that's right, that's something else. So, yeah, Valerie.
I just want to ask, Mr. Friedland is in the room. And we haven't really heard from him tonight. Mr. Friedland is in the room. We haven't heard from him tonight. He's a former community board member. Every developer that's come to us to ask us for a zoning change comes to us and tells us that they will do the minimum allowed by law. And the developers in this room have heard members of the community talk to what they need in excess of that. Because I think we're all concerned about that. We want the affordable housing in this neighborhood. We've had so much loss. These empty buildings that Barbara's talking about are, not only are they a blight, they're a shame that people have been thrown out of their homes and there's no affordable housing. We don't know if and when 421A is going to come back into being. We don't know if there will be additional conditions. And I would like to hear what Mr. Friedland has to say about perhaps going above and beyond what the law allows and actually doing something that this community wants. And maybe that will help us get to a resolution and a compromise.
Okay, all right. The applicant is not himself obligated to do that. If he wants to, he can. Yeah, I understand. So
I
let
would
us
just
know.
like to make one point. Community, this is a ULIP, right? It's a long process. It ends at the city council. So there's plenty of opportunities for us to work with you to work on the project and the proposal ending at the city council.
Stop.
And we have gotten that.
All right, next, we're gonna go to Judy Schneider on Zoom. Is he going to speak or not?
Is he gonna?
Do you want to let?
Oh, if you want to speak, yeah, please do. Yes.
I mean, I can speak for 2 minutes. I'm not sure I can.
Can't hear you.
I can speak for 2 minutes. I'm
please
not sure I
speak
can answer everybody's questions, and I apologize because I'm fighting a small cold. but I'll try to speak as loudly as possible. I understand what you're saying. I don't remember if you were on the Zoom. I am a former member of the community board. Hello to everybody, to old friends. Some of the nuanced changes in our presentation from the last presentation we had, where we incorporated 3-bedroom apartments. That was something we heard loud and clear from the Zoom last month, I guess. And so we talked internally and we decided that that was something that we could do. I'm subject to the 2 minutes.
No, you can go on.
Okay. I'll try to be subject.
But yeah,
to the
we're
2
just trying
minutes
to.
anyway. There are certain things, I don't think that we have blighted this particular stretch of 94th Street. The garage, as has been discussed, is actively operating. We purchased the vacant building vacant. And I think we've kept it pretty well. Of all the comments that we've heard tonight, we haven't heard anything specifically about this building. And I think we've tried to be good neighbors. As many of you know, I live not that far from here. We own other property in the neighborhood. We try to be good neighbors, community citizens, and here we're trying to be a good developer. The affordable housing question, we're trying. We're trying as hard as we can. Again, if you were on the Zoom last month, you would know that as things stand right now, we couldn't afford to build this building today. This building can't be built without some type of state intervention. And as Jerry said, that's not just an us issue or an issue specific to this site. It's an issue subject that affects all rental developers in New York City, and nothing will be built without some form of state aid. And they set these minimums because they try to calibrate the maximum that affordability that can be gotten, while also making sure that stuff actually gets built. If you mandated all rental housing was 100% affordable, for instance, of course, very little would be built, or there would have to be massive subsidies or state intervention. So that's how we try to think about things. We're happy to continue talking. I've heard a lot about the garage, and I understand that the point about parking spots. You know, we can talk about that. What I would suggest is, if you're veering towards a yes vote, and I can't quite read the room because I've heard strong feelings on both sides, but if you're going towards a yes vote, I would say yes. But we ask for action on a garage, or we would like at least 100 spots, or whatever it is that the community board feels. The garage spots is something I think we could talk about.
Thank you. So Judy, go ahead.
Did he unmute again?
Point of information, Russell, your question. If they remove any trees, city law is they have to reimburse Parks Department for the trees they remove, and they have to give them enough money, not just for the one tree, but I believe it's 4 or 5 trees for each tree. So I don't think we have to worry about the trees because they're obviously going to follow the law. Can we just take Craig's resolution and add these suggestions that we have been talking, we approve, but we would like the developer, for instance, to look at putting parking spaces in the basement of the building, etc., and list all of the various items that we've spoken about during the meeting, and put the resolution together that way?
I think we could. I think it's a question of what's a friendly amendment and what's not. So what else would you want?
Well, I would start with the car spaces, because I do agree that we're losing lots and lots of garages, including Mr. Friedman's garage on 65th Street, which is becoming a school. So I do think we need the car space. And then, but I think everybody can just raise their hand and suggest what they want to add.
Yeah. Okay, so Craig, so you said you weren't you didn't like some of the friendly amendments, but you were open to some, so which ones?
That's not how this works. I can accept, I understand. With the parking issues, I think that there is probably a way that we can have something in there where it could be reasonable and hopefully find some middle ground. I don't want to accept something that's going to be to the extent where it's going to perhaps change the complexion of what the project is, or take away affordable housing. So I just want to be careful about.
Okay, so you're saying, so parking, yes, if it incorporates, parking, and that doesn't, lower the amount of affordability in the building.
And yeah, and I don't know if we want to put in a number in there, but it should not be a one-to-one replacement. It needs to be something that is.
The parking. Okay, you want to say 100, is that? Why don't we say at least 100, and what's that? 200, let's say 200, that'll be all right. So, what about this is already, yeah, okay, what about, the labor component, the project labor or prevailing wage?
So what was that? I didn't hear that.
For construction, we want like, union construction.
All right, if that's gonna help move this along, I'm sure, absolutely.
Okay, I think the tree thing should be actually covered. What was the other issue? Oh, height. I mean, okay, so height is I'll let other folks sort of speak to height, but that's something that I suspect we'll want to incorporate. So go ahead, Abraham.
I want clarity on the question of, are you open to doing more than the minimum on the affordable housing? If we included in the resolution that it'd be 30%, is that doable? Obviously not 100, but is there room in that to go above the minimum that you would be willing to commit to as part of an approval?
So under the MIH program, there's MIH option 2, which is 30% affordability. But under that option, the AMIs change. It's no more than 3 income bands, and the average has to be 80%. No more than 80%. So that's an option that's in zoning that exists. And to the extent that we can maybe discuss it in the future, like as we move forward, we're open to that. But again, anything above MIH is subject to other kinds of subsidy and programs.
Sorry, I want to go to other folks. Who's? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think the garage is really not the top priority compared to affordable housing. And it's not gonna cost them any more upfront to build more affordable. That's what we should focus on.
Okay.
Can you repeat the comment?
The comment was that affordability is the priority, and that's what we should focus on in terms of conditions, is trying to increase the affordability. To paraphrase. Is that Sarah? Yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I just, as a rule, I generally oppose things that are precedent block because community board 8 fought really hard for REP zoning. I know that this particular spot is not REP, but everything around it is. And REP also happens to be for all people who are talking about affordable housing. That's where it is. So if we have a threat to mid-block, to our mid-block zoning, that means that it presents the opportunity for other affordable units to be taken down. So if we are planning on having a supported resolution, I think that it has to be compelling. And it can't be just a, oh, little tweak here, little tweak there. It has to be compelling. And I would implore my colleagues to put down exactly what we want. Because after this process, it goes to the borough president, then it goes to the city council. And they are reading our resolution to inform them on how hard they're gonna push on our behalf.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
Definitely, I would suggest, since it seems that the board, for the most part, is very supportive of protecting REPs, and we understand that that's a concern. We also understand that this is a unique situation given the existing zoning here, that we in there in the resolution reiterate our support and interest in preserving REP as close as possible, and that this is the exception, not the rule about mid-block development.
That's fine, yeah, okay, we can, yes, I mean, doesn't have to do with this particular, yeah, we can do that. Michelle,
I would just like to make a substitute resolution that is not necessarily affirmative, but is what I had said before. That Community Board 8 would like to see the following incorporated in this project. And then we list what we would like to see incorporated. I don't think we have to say yes or no. I think our issue is to make our needs known in the area, and that to just do it simply that way. And I think that would incorporate the input of almost everybody here, because there may be something in the list that a majority does not want, you know, something that was asked for that the majority does not want. But if we can get a consensus up to about 10 things that should be included, we can just say that we are asking for the following to be included and vote on that.
yeah, I mean, to me, okay, so that's seconded, to me, that's like a disapprove disapprove unless, I think it's better just to.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it, because it won't, because when you tally the vote, you're voting for the changes and not for or against the project. That's what you're voting for. Because the resolution would say, therefore, resolved that Community Board 8.
Yeah, I understand.
Is accepting the request.
Can we do that? Can we just do comments and have it not be a formally approved?
I don't see why not.
We could ask.
You know, I'm asking you, yeah.
Oh.
Why would Bill know?
Maybe Will doesn't.
Joe, I mean,
We can do whatever we want.
I mean, the options to put it into the system are yes, no, yes with conditions, no with conditions.
Well, you are voting on.
So that's the answer. So there's a form we have to fill out in the.
No, you
Look,
said.
if you want-
There's no form.
Everyone says the same intention to a risk.
Can't hear you,
have to
Chuck.
say yes or no.
Chuck is saying, okay,
Conditions.
in order for it to have
I mean, I
any
can
force,
tell
it
you
has to
you're not
be yes or no.
Just a laundry list.
So to me, what you're describing is has more impact if it's a no unless.
But you know, we did this with the open restaurants. We
That's a
simply
different-
sent in.
That was
a list
different.
of
That's
all
not a you. That's not a you.
Completely different issue.
Well, I don't understand. Well, let's make it a no unless. What's your objection to that? And what are the conditions that you?
Okay,
So what are the conditions that you want are the ones that Craig was talking about?
well, I don't know, I couldn't barely hear what he was talking about, but just what everybody had mentioned, the parking for sure, I think I heard.
200, yeah.
That's fine. We're asking for reduced height. We're asking for, oh,
Green
help me,
space.
those of you who are listening, I'm trying to remember everything that was said. What?
Some open space component.
Yeah,
Okay.
open space.
Yeah,
We know we don't have to put the trees in because that.
Judy talked, yeah, I think that's, yeah.
An increase, I know, I thank the developer for adding more 3 bedrooms. Like to ask that,
Has to be 400, not a lower amount than 4 units.
to raise it to 30% affordable.
But do we want option B or do we want?
Well, what are the repercussions of option B? I'm not familiar with the repercussions.
It raises the AMR.
Which makes it
Yeah.
less.
but how does that
It's
fit?
4 units that are less affordable.
Oh, it'd be more units
Yeah, it's 30%, but they don't have to be as function one.
as affordable?
As affordable, yeah, there's a percentage, yeah.
Well, I'm open to what people think is better on that count. I really don't know.
We can say, I mean, we can say either option. I mean, and look, what I'm asking is for folks on the board
Okay,
to
so.
give us things that we can put into the resolution so we can do this.
I'm listing as best I can, those that can help me remember, I appreciate it. I am not sure, sitting here at this moment, what the giveaway, what we have to give up to get the 30%, so maybe that's not a good balance, so I'm happy to leave it at 25. You know, if anybody can explain to all of us why it's a better get at 30%, oh, you know, fine, but I mean.
Just in terms of what, yeah, just in terms of what the sort of, you know, menu options are under mandatory inclusion or inclusive housing. Option A, as I understand, is just explaining it's 25%, the average has to be 60% of AM. If you go option B, that's 30%, the average is 80%. So it's a higher percentage, but the income level is higher, so it's less affordable, slightly less affordable, but more units. So those are the trade-offs.
25%.
So, okay.
I can't deviate from those two options.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, let's go to, okay.
Anybody else who contribute to that list?
All right, so that's, but that's basically, that's what we're sort of
But that's basically-
discussing, and we do have to kind of wrap this up. They don't even. So Rebecca, go ahead, Rebecca.
And everybody, please.
Just keep your voices down. Yeah, go ahead, Rebecca.
I can't hear.
Space, and I don't know if we're concerned about parking spaces, maybe we can incorporate.
It seems to me if we were gonna add parking spaces, that's gonna probably come at the expense of the commercial,
Yeah.
plus the open space, that's, you know.
But that's what
makes sense.
accommodates the community's
Yeah, yeah.
needs. We're financially not figuring out.
Michelle, I want to go to other folks and we'll recognize you as these minutes, but, Valerie, right.
Yeah, said, getting these rental building for at least 10 to 15 years. Because when it's been over years, I'd like to see there be something in the restrictions that you're gonna maintain this, everybody here is in rental housing, we have a ton of co-ops and condos.
I got it.
On the Upper East Side, we want a commitment that the
They're not-
affordable housing, but the rest of the building.
Yeah. At this point, we're just talking about, we're at the point where we're just talking about what we want to see, so they're not gonna be commit to anything in this meeting. Okay, so 15 years of rental housing,
I don't know.
at least, that's fine, okay, so let's, do you accept that friendly amendment?
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think we can guarantee that forever. It's the nature of the project.
Alita,
Like that, I'd like to be a good neighbor. A good neighbor means doing more than the minimum. So I would like to ask the 30% with the formula up to 25% under MIH. Because if you're a good neighbor, you help someone down the subway stairs, you pick up a stick of gum that's on the sidewalk. You help someone cross the street. You do something more than what you have to do just because you have to do it. And that's what I would like to make as a friendly amendment, that they do more, because they are asking for so much more. But I think 2-story building, when you put the mechanicals
Well,
up.
I'm asking for it to be shorter, but the point is, I don't think you can do it. It's
no, I
not
think
the
it's, I
neighbor.
think we can ask for, I think we can ask for that if we want to.
You can ask for it.
Yeah, so do you accept that friendly amendment?
Thank you.
If it's something that you can ask for, yeah.
Yeah, it is, okay. Fred,
We already for height reduction. you
I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to oppose this. At the end of the day, by saying no, we're telling them we oppose affordable housing unless we prioritize everything else above
You can
affordable
oppose
housing. It should be the other way, which would be yes with conditions, not no with conditions.
Hey, I know you all want to speak, but like, if multiple people are speaking, it does drown it out and it makes it hard for everybody else to hear.
Juno,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how this works, but.
Can you stand up, Junior?
Propose a substitute motion to this motion?
no, there's only one substitute allowed, so you can propose a friendly amendment to this resolution, or even an unfriendly amendment conceivably, or you can just vote no when it comes up.
Can I propose an amendment to Craig's motion?
No, because that's not on the floor. Yep, Wilma.
Point of information, I'd like to know exactly who creates, saying this motion.
Well, Greg's motion's not on the floor anymore.
Michelle, what is?
Okay, so Michelle's motion, as I understand it, it is a no unless there is, the height is reduced, open space is added to the project, 200 parking spaces are retained of the ones that are gonna be lost. A commitment to use union labor in the construction, or prevailing wage. 30% affordable instead of 25% under the same terms. And, did I leave anything out? Is that everything? I said open space. Hold on, of what we have so far, is that everything? Yes, I said the open space. Okay. So that's what it is. So that's the current resolution.
We said like.
Oh, and then we'll make a statement in there that notwithstanding the fact that, you know, if there's is to get, you know, rezoned subject to our conditions.
Oh, 15
that,
years.
oh, and 15 years of rental, yeah, that Valerie said, right, okay. Yes, but also the statement of support for maintaining RAB notwithstanding the fact that we're essentially approving this if all the conditions are met. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Call the question.
Second.
Is anyone opposed to? Yes, you may.
Are we saying that it's no unless they do every one of these things?
That is what the resolution says.
Oh.
It's no unless, it says what it says, it's a no unless.
Doing it, yes.
That was Craig's, but that was superseded by the substitute motion. Substitute resolution. Is anyone opposed to calling the question? Okay, so, secretaries, call.
This is only kind of board members from here on, but
Yeah.
we're here around.
Yes, you had your opportunity to speak. Yes, the answer is yes.
Speak, but we have no say beyond this.
Correct, that is how it works.
Okay, so we can't put an option on the board, this is what we said.
Correct, yes.
All right, I'm calling the roll now. I'm starting with Michael Anderson.
No, unless it's conditional.
So is that a no to Michelle's?
The resolution on the, yeah, so the resolution on the floor is Michelle's resolution. That is to disapprove the application unless the following conditions are met. Open space included, it's all the ones that I just listed, the, union labor or prevailing wage, 200 parking spaces, reduced height, 30% affordable under the same terms, 15 years of at least of franchising, the affirmation of RAB, and what else? Did I leave anything out? Open space. It's all the ones that I already said. So just in case I didn't just say them again. So that's what it is. So Mike, how are you going?
Yes.
Okay, Bill Angelos.
No.
Ashby.
Oh, sorry.
Didn't hear you.
Elizabeth, Ashby?
Pass.
Okay, Gail Barron. Jennifer, right? Birnbaum?
Yes.
Boris?
No.
Borrero, not here. Camp?
Yes.
Charles Song?
No.
Chu?
Pass.
Cone?
Yes.
Coleman?
Pass.
Cormac?
No.
Danbor?
No.
Barber?
No.
Freeland?
Pass.
Hartzog?
Ed, you need to unmute.
Pass.
Hershenson? Pass?
Yes.
Oh, yes, yes. Halpern? Not here. Hussein?
No.
Johnson?
Pass.
Crickler?
Pass.
Later? Lamort? Not here. Lev? No. Mason?
Pass.
McClement?
Yes.
Meyerson? Not here. Mossman? Not here. Partial?
Yeah.
Phillips not here. Pope Marshall?
Pass.
Popper?
No.
Price?
Yes.
Rose?
Yes.
Rudder?
No.
Salcido?
No.
Sanchez?
Yes.
Jack not here. Schneider?
Schneider, unmute.
No.
Seligson? No. Spagnoletti?
Yes.
Squire?
Yes.
Tamayo? Wald?
No.
Warren?
No.
All right, we have a bunch of passes. Starting with Ashby.
Oh, sorry. Elizabeth, you can unmute now.
No.
Bear in mind here. Chu?
Yeah.
Coleman? Sandra?
Yes.
All right, Freeland?
No.
Hartzog?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yeah.
Crickler?
No.
Mason?
No.
Meyerson, not here, Mossman, not here, Phillips, not here, Pope Marshall,
No.
Sanchez.
No.
All right, did I miss anyone? Marco,
Abstain.
abstain, okay.
All right, so I don't think it passed, so
It did not
let's
pass.
move on. So, Rebecca,
Actually, just substitute, resolution that yes, the petition include the same thing.
Second.
okay, so Rebecca's motion is a yes with conditions, and the conditions are all of the same conditions that we had in the previous one. Yeah, and there's a substitute motion. Yeah, so she's substituting on top of the price.
It's the same conditions with the yes.
It's the same conditions with a yes.
The condition lacks specificity, you're saying reduce height, what does that mean?
You're right, we didn't include us, you're right, I
You
mean,
should have some specificity before having to vote.
okay, well, let's propose something. Adam's comment is, one of the conditions, the reduced height lacks specificity. That is accurate. I put in there what somebody said, so somebody wants to include specificity, you have to add it. What's that?
Higher than the other ones around, higher than the avenue, whatever the highest happening one.
Except for the 60 foot, except for.
Yeah,
one people on the avenue.
Right.
So what's your, sorry, can you just phrase what it is?
And 30% of land.
Yeah, that's still in there.
Yeah.
It's no higher than 34.
Say yes.
And no higher than 34, whatever the footage is, 34 stories around it.
We can't tell a story.
No, I'm saying whatever the footage is.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, so let me just go to Sharon. We'll come back.
Hey,
Go ahead, Sharon.
Voted on resolutions with general framework.
sir,
So my recommendation is that we can work out the particulars at a later time. We've done this in the past.
I mean, we can't do that for this because we're not gonna, I don't think there's like a
No,
general.
we can vote.
No, we can't because there's nothing, we wouldn't know what to plug in. We wouldn't know what to plug in unless we vote on it tonight.
you have a hand up.
We have not needed to have that type of specificity in the past. So
No, we have, we really, for a number, we do. Billy.
Billy?
Yeah, I just am not really comfortable voting for something that calls for a height restriction without any discussion of how many units we're actually going to lose. So it's sort of tough because I want this building, I want this new housing, but unless we get something more specific, I'm not sure how I can vote for this resolution without hearing from the developer what the trade-off looks like.
I mean, they're not here to make deals this evening. I would say again, like folks to just, instead of saying that you don't like something, I would strongly encourage people on the board to say what you do like and what you would want to have included in the resolution so that we can vote on the resolution. Sahar.
So I just wanted to ask that, we have a list of things that we're asking. Can't we just ask a few because they are developers? They would want to make, kind of whatever profit, and like it has to be like, agree with Lily that we need more housing. So can we have a few of these that are like we can all agree to instead of having a very long list and that we add to this?
I mean, I think the hope is, or the sort of hope is that the list that we've come up with is something on which there's sort of more or less, reasonably broad consensus on. I don't know what ultimately will come through in terms of what the developer will do or not. This is our ask, and this is our part of the process to do that. After this, we'll have some kind of peripheral involvement perhaps, but basically it's sort of out of our hands. So this is our chance to ask for what we want, and and what we get will be what it is. So I'm gonna go to Greg.
All right, thank you, Russell. I was gonna suggest that maybe we have it structured so that we are asking for 100 affordable units and that building height and all the other things that we're asking for get accommodated into the framework of that.
No, it could lead to a
Well, then 113, you say 113, what?
that could lead to an increase in height.
If you need to, that number needs to come down a little in order to accommodate something that will allow for this compromise, we can do that, that can be discussed, but doing it with the framework of the number of affordable housing units as we're targeting could be a way of saying.
But you can specify, yes, so what do you wanna do? So you wanna say how many?
Right, but then.
Just comment on
You
that.
can't do that, because if they're in the program, then they have to provide the 25% if they're option one. You can't say do 100 units instead of 113, because they're not gonna be in the program.
Right.
No,
So
but
it doesn't, you can't do that.
but if they have if they reduce the size of their building and still need 25%.
That's not what the.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, Elizabeth.
So I think I heard Adam say that under City of Yes, there actually will be a height limit on certain zoning types that are, it's designed for a 355 foot height limit for quality housing design with the full 10 FAR and the override 12 would be for MIE. So I would like to propose to be very specific that there be a height limit of 355. And this might be a perfect case where cantilever makes complete and total sense that would meet the needs of the neighborhood, that would get the full number of apartment units that everybody wants, including the full number of affordable housing units, and would be a much more contextual building in this case than a 484 foot tower.
Rebecca, do you accept that from the amendment? Separate from the cantilever.
Something more specific about height, we can get out, but I think that's.
She's saying 355 feet. You don't accept a friendly amendment of 355 feet.
But it's not, I don't, anything about cantilever.
That's all, that was commentary, that's not part of the thing. That doesn't have to go in.
Did she accept it or not?
350, yeah, it's just the height. Okay, so that's the friendly amendment, yeah, she did. Okay, so the current resolution. The change, it's the same conditions, it's a yes instead of a no, but with conditions that are the same. And the addition of more specificity on the height, which is a limit of 355 feet. But that is the resolution that's on the floor.
Point of information, can you just repeat what the conditions are that are putting into this resolution?
Yeah, so, okay, it's a height limit of 355 feet. It is 30% affordability under the same terms. Yeah, it is open space. It is 200 parking spaces. It is, labor, construction or prevailing wage. It is the 15-year, rental, requirement. It is the affirmation that notwithstanding the yes, that we still are committed to REP in other areas of the district. It is yeah, that's everything. I said open space, I said parking. Yeah, I've got the list here, so I think I have the list.
Have the same point of information. So are we saying that we say yes if they do every single one? So if we say we want 350 feet and they make it 351 feet, does that mean our resolution is no?
Our resolution says what it says. Our resolution says yes with conditions.
It's a recommendation, it's not.
It says yes, we approve it under these conditions.
But that's what the community board is, it's a recommendation.
Yeah.
Well, does our yes vote mean anything then?
Yes, it's advisory. Yes, the city will take it into account in what they're doing in our council member. Go ahead, Sharon.
Point for information, so that if they say, if we pass this and they decide to meet some of the conditions, but not all of them, will they come back again?
No, they're not kind of coming back to this week.
But that's how it is.
Look, procedure,
Yeah.
Can I just say something? The procedure will be, it's gonna go to, after we pass it, it's gonna go to the city council, either the city council first, city council person will look at our resolution and talk to them and say, what can you do or not do? And then the city council person, if they don't like it, can say, I'm against it. That's the ultimate weapon, and where we have influence is that to the extent our city council person thinks that our resolution makes sense, they'll try and enforce that to some extent. Not, you're not gonna get everything, obviously, but to some extent. And if they do, then the developers will see what they can do.
Yeah, thank you.
Call the question.
Second.
Is anyone opposed to calling the question? Okay, secretaries.
Okay, on the substitute motion, Anderson.
Yes.
Angelos. Ashby.
Abstain.
Barron.
Yes.
Birnbaum.
Yes. Yes.
Borres.
Yes.
Camp.
No.
Chalasong.
Pass.
Chu.
Pass.
Cone.
No.
Coleman. Andrea.
Yes.
Cormac.
Yes.
Dangor.
Yes.
Barber. Yes. Freeland.
Yes.
Hartzog.
Pass.
Hershenson.
Yeah.
Hussein.
False.
Johnson.
Pass.
Prickler.
Yes.
Later.
Yes.
Lev.
Pass.
Mason.
Yes.
McClement.
Yes.
Meyerson's not here, Mossman's not here, Partial.
No.
John Phillips, Johnson's here, okay. Pope Marshall,
Yes.
Popper,
Yes.
Price,
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Rudder,
Yes.
Salcedo,
Yes.
Sanchez,
Yes.
Schneider,
Yes.
Seligson. Spagnoletti,
No.
Squire,
Yes.
Tamayo,
Abstain.
Wald,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
okay, and then let's go back to the people who passed. Angelos, Barron,
Yes.
Chalasong,
Yes.
Cone. I'm sorry, Chu.
Point of information. This
Yeah.
includes the PWD5.
Yes.
Yes.
Hartzog,
Ed, you're gonna mute.
Yeah, yes.
Hussein,
You have to
yeah,
vote.
oh, you passed.
It's back, yeah, it's back.
Yeah,
So I can say, we got it fast.
No, no, you can't keep passing. You're already passed.
Okay, then I'm in favor. Yes.
Johnson,
Yes.
Lev,
Yes.
okay, and that is everybody, and that passes.
Please don't leave.
Yeah, everybody stay. We still have more stuff we have to do and we'll stay until we get that.
So
Okay.
that's 32 yes, 4 no, 3 abstain.
Thank you very much for being here as long as you have it.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, everybody from the board, stay here. Very quick question informally. So the next item on the agenda is the budget committee resolution. Is anybody gonna want to discuss this or is it okay? Because if we can pass it quickly, I would like to do that. Otherwise, I'm gonna lay it. So is anybody gonna have any issues with
Somebody
it?
make a comment about it, explain it.
It's the approving the district needs statement that's in the minutes and approving the capital items and expense items.
Second.
Okay.
It's the usual stuff.
Like, you can vote any way you want, but I just wanna know if there's gonna be discussion. But it's mostly similar to the same stuff we have.
Can you tell me the first three priorities?
Public safety, go ahead, sorry. No, you are the chair, so go ahead.
Affordable housing, public safety, parks and open space, and then we added in a fourth, which was.
So schools are not in the first 4 or 5?
Schools are in the first 5, but in the top 3, schools drop down.
Public safety has supplanted school seats as among the top 3. That's the biggest change essentially from last year.
And then more funding for community boards. Community boards.
That's another item that's high on the list. So you want to just, yeah, so Chuck made a motion to approve the resolution. It was seconded.
Call the question.
Marco calls the question. Is that seconded?
Second.
Okay. Is anyone opposed to calling the question? Is anyone going to vote no on this item? You are?
I'm going.
Okay, so let's call the roll.
All right,
But you can use the only one.
No, let's just do it the right way.
Anderson. Anderson,
Yes.
are you voting yes?
He's voting yes.
Okay,
Don't leave, Mike.
Ashby,
Yes.
Barron,
Yes.
Birnbaum,
Yes.
Boris,
Yes.
Camp,
Yes.
Chavasang,
Yes.
Chu,
Yes.
Cone,
Yes.
Coleman,
Yes.
Cormac,
Yes.
Danbor,
Yes.
Barber,
Yes.
Freeland,
Yes.
Hartsog,
Yes.
Kirshenson.
Yeah.
Hussein,
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Crickler,
Yes.
Later. Lev, yes. Mason.
Yes.
McClement,
Yes.
Partial,
Yes.
Pope Marshall,
Yes.
Hopper,
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Rose,
Yes.
Rudder,
Yes.
Salcedo,
Yes.
Sanchez. Schneider,
Judy, you're gonna mute.
in the meantime, Seligson,
Yes.
Spagnoletti,
He has a coffee cup up, but
Squire,
Yes.
Tamaya,
No.
Wall,
Yes.
Warren,
Yes.
Schneider.
Judy is not on her screen, so just let's count her as.
Here, great, so the resolution passes.
I want us to do what? Yeah, I would like for us to do the questions for the contested positions.
Tonight,
Yeah.
you don't want to do them in Zoom?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so now, guys, I know it's late, that's great. I think we have time before we get thrown out of here to do the questions and answers for the contested position. The other positions, we'll do those questions over Zoom separately. But let's just do as much as we can this evening with folks here in person.
If you don't mind.
The non-contested positions, the ones where there's only one candidate. So we should do the chair questions tonight, and you should do first question.
And can you give the microphone, please?
No, because
You can pass the mic.
the problem is the mic.
They're gonna be right here. So can you hear him?
Can you turn that up? And this one, can you turn it up?
They're not gonna be on Zoom, it's the people who are here in the room right now.
Oh,
Beg your pardon? Yes, we will turn it up, sorry, for the candidates who are on Zoom, we will turn it up, as we already did, yeah.
yeah. So, yeah.
So I'm turning it over
sorry.
to Bill.
This is,
Do the election committee report. For this portion of the.
I think this will work really, really well. No order.
You have a preference?
Not choosing.
I love rock paper.
And if you're having conversations in the back, if you don't mind just going.
Yeah,
into the lobby.
Zach has been said.
Yes, you saw.
Please.
Okay, in accordance with the bylaws, This meeting is devoted to answering questions, and the committee has received questions from the board. And the committee members have met and decided which questions we should be asked.
Bill, please speak up.
And if I can come closer too. We try it, we'll try it. People on Zoom yell at me if you're struggling to hear.
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay. In accordance with bylaws, this meeting is devoted to answering questions. The committee has received questions from the board members, and we have met and decided which question should be asked. So we'll start with the chair. And the two candidates are Valerie Mason and Abraham Sotelo. So these are the questions. I'm going to start with you, Valerie. Why do you want to be the chair? Or why do you believe you're best suited for this position as chair?
Why do I want to be the chair? Okay, well, I've given a right, it wasn't right. Oh, okay. Hi, everybody. You want me to stand up too? Okay, why do I want to be the chair? I live in.
So the lower school will be closing in 20 minutes. The lower school will be closing in 20 minutes.
We can just do 20 minutes. Yeah.
So
We can just do it in 20 minutes. How long is this portion going to take?
You can certainly try, like.
Are we serious?
Yeah.
Or not?
Okay, all right, let's do it over Zoom. That's fine. You guys, okay, all right,
I agree that I don't want either of us or anyone to be rushed, so.
You're right. Okay, we are gonna do this portion, the questions and answers. We will find a time to do it over Zoom so that folks will have the opportunity to hear the answers to the questions. It's better to do that than to do it rushed. I agree with you guys. So,
In a separate
so
meeting.
with that,
It doesn't need to be a meeting, and actually, it's probably preferable that it's not a meeting, because
Yeah,
if
there's
you
no-
have open meetings law things.
there's no live questions. So fundamentally, it's about the committee's questions being asked to the candidates and the candidates answering. So in the interest of time, you
And it
will,
has to be before.
We
it
can,
has to be before next Wednesday.
if it's preferable for them, I can even go to the office and we can open the office, and it could be around.
We will coordinate it with the candidates
So,
and with Bill.
We'll figure out a way that
We will
it's.
have a way so that everybody will have an opportunity to hear the answers to the questions, and let's give this. You're right, we shouldn't do this in front.
Speak of video.
Yes, it's gonna be recorded, it's gonna be recorded.
I'll put it up on.
Will be back.
We're not, it's not gonna be live in front of them. It's gonna be just asking the questions. Hold on, we haven't adjourned yet, but it's gonna be asking over Zoom, and then we'll circulate the video of the question.
But before next Wednesday.
Yes, of course. Okay, so,
We could do it tomorrow afternoon.
perfect, okay, so we'll find a time to do it tomorrow. For you guys and for the other offices, we'll do it other days. So, okay, that is it for the agenda. So, as.
I didn't make a motion.
Yes, okay, your second. Anyone from the staff? Okay, great, all right, thank you, everybody, thanks for.